Canada was quick to retaliate after President Trump's tariffs went into effect. But earlier today, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick hinted the U.S. may look to reach an agreement to lower tariffs with both Canada and Mexico. CBS News' Lana Zak is in Windsor, Ontario, with more.
Hi there. Consumers are going to become acutely aware of how intertwined the U.S. and Canadian economies are, particularly when it comes to manufacturing. I'm here on the factory floor of Laval International. That's why I have these safety glasses on. And I spoke with the CEO, Jonathan Azoparty, who told me that things cross back and forth from his shop to his American suppliers multiple times, and explained why that added up.
So in that scenario, you have to understand that these goods, by design, have to go back and forth across the border. Every time, in this case, they'll be incurring tariff.
And you can see how all of that starts to add up. Here's the current state of play. Canadian products that come across the border into the United States are taxed at 25%. $30 billion worth of American goods that come into Canada are being taxed right now at 25%. And the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has also threatened that that could increase to $155 billion in 21 days if the Trump administration doesn't pull back from those tariffs. We're also seeing unilateral action being taken. The Premier of Ontario here has said that he would be happy, with a smile on his face, he would cut off Ontario's supply of energy to the U.S. And we're also learning that the Liquor Control Board of Ontario is pulling American spirits from their shelves. That is a $1 billion industry. They purchase $1 billion of American alcohol every year. But here with Detroit just over the river, the biggest concern is the auto manufacturing industry, because I spoke with the head of the Chamber of Commerce here, and he says auto manufacturing cannot turn on a dime, and the amount that these levies are going to be compounded, well, he doesn't think any consumers will be able to afford it. Back to you.
Lana Zak, thank you. The U.S.'s trade partnership with Canada has been one of the driving forces of several border states' economies. One of those states is Maine, whose biggest trading partner is Canada. For example, Maine exported just over $1.4 billion worth of goods to Canada in 2023, according to U.S. Census Bureau data. Maine Senator Susan Collins told reporters yesterday just how important trading with Canada is for the state's economy.
Maine's economy is very integrated with Canada. It is not only our largest trading partner, but also certain Maine products, such as lobster and blueberries, are often processed in Canada and then come back into the United States.
Asa McKercher joins us for more on this. He's the Hudson Chair of Canada-U.S. Relations at St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia. Asa, according to analysis from Chief Credit Analyst LendingTree, Maine, Montana, Vermont, all states that receive most of their imports from Canada. Even though Treasury Secretary Lutnick now says the U.S. will work with Canada, what impact will any tariffs have on these border states?
Yeah, you're going to see job losses. You're going to see closures of plants. You're going to see people laid off, shifts ending on manufacturing floors. And we're going to see that on both sides of the border. You're going to see fewer tourists coming across. You're going to see fewer people coming for vacations. There's already been a drop in the number of people going on sort of weekend shopping trips, which is a common thing, for instance, at the border between British Columbia and Washington. People come down from Vancouver to Bellingham, Washington, for instance, every weekend to do shopping at Costco and other places. Big drop in the border there. And a drop in border crossings at other places too. Buffalo, New York has seen restaurateurs. There were reports of restaurateurs just seeing no Canadians when they're usually flooded by Canadians every weekend. And I think that's going to be the case as long as the trade war lasts, and maybe even longer.
How symbiotic are the economies of Canada and the U.S., and how could these tariffs change things?
I mean, they're enmeshed. We provide all kinds of natural resources to you, particularly oil and gas, but critical minerals, lumber, fish products, wheat and grain, and all kinds of things. And vice versa. We buy all kinds of things, particularly this time of year. We're buying Florida orange juice, and we're buying Kentucky bourbon and some things like that. But also, as your piece noted, there's all kinds of manufactured goods that go across the border, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 times. And that's all making financial sense on the part of businesses who plan their supply chains this way. And all of these things are going to take a hit, and all of these things are going to stack up for consumers on both sides of the border, because, of course, your government has put in place a tariff on Canadian goods, and we've now responded by putting a tariff on American goods. And so the end result is that consumers on both sides of the border can pay higher prices. But there's going to be all these sort of knock-on effects. Again, lost shifts, plant closures, and fewer Canadians and Americans going across the border, in everyday kind of travel, but also planning vacations. Huge numbers of people that I know personally, and certainly reported in the press, are canceling trips to Florida and other places.
Is that because of a change in sentiment?
Oh yeah, sure. As I say, as you mentioned, in Canada this time of year, many people want to head to Florida, and people are canceling their trips, and that's just a sign of how serious this is, if Canadians are willing to forego Orlando or Tampa or other places.
Is it because of the cost aspect, or sort of more of a protest, if you will?
Protest, absolutely a protest kind of thing. It's not just the tariffs, it's the fact that that's then backed up essentially by your president questioning our very existence as a country, talking about the 51st state stuff. That might seem like a joke to some Americans, but Canadians, we take this very, very seriously. And so, why would we spend our hard-earned money in your country, when your president and frankly other Republican politicians, including Governor DeSantis, are talking about, Canada becoming a 51st state? Canadians take that very personally.
Wow, that's fascinating. Why spend our hard-earned money in your country with comments like that? Just stunning. I do want to ask you, the Trump administration has made it clear, part of this is about fentanyl, part of it is about wanting more domestic manufacturing in the States. Is that a potential long-term goal for Canada? Do you see any Canadian companies being willing to avoid tariffs by starting U.S. manufacturing?
Yeah, the fentanyl thing is frankly a lie. Less than like a dozen grams or something comes across every year.
It's less than 1%
It's less than a battery size.
Seized.
It's less than, it's absolutely nothing. And so the fact that this is being held up, the fentanyl is the pretext for the tariffs. It's the only way legally that Mr. Trump can get around the agreement that he himself signed, the CUSMA agreement, which is only 5 years old. And so fentanyl is the pretext for this, declaring an emergency at the Canada-U.S. border. And I think because this is the long-term goal for the Trump administration is to reshore jobs in America. This is what Mr. Trump said the other day about our auto industry. He said we in Canada shouldn't have an auto industry. All of those jobs, those auto jobs should come back to America, despite, again, the long history of a North American auto industry. And certainly that, I think, is the hope for Mr. Trump and a number of other industries as well. And so, the long-term viability of Canada's economy is something that, again, Canadians were very concerned of. And Mr. Trudeau noted today that his perception is, from his conversations with Americans, including Mr. Trump, is that Mr. Trump wants to weaken our country to, again, with the long-term goal, perhaps, of even turning us into a 51st state. This is a very serious threat that Americans have or your president at least, have kind of levied against Canadians.
And one that Canadians take to heart.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't want to be in this position. This is not a tariff war that we've chosen. It's not a tariff war I think that the majority of Americans have chosen. But we're here because of the decisions of Mr. Trump and his administration. And we're seeing that public frustration. You saw it in the reaction of hockey games over the last few weeks.
Right.
It takes a lot to get Canadians to boo your national anthem. We're a very polite people, but when pushed, and when push comes to shove, we're not.
All right, Asa McKercher, thank you for your time.
Thank you.